What's up, y'all? Just jamming, man. Got Journey going on. Hold on. Journey said, "Don't stop believing." I'm gonna turn the music off so we can get into session one. So first, I am your host, Chris Daniel, PMP Guru. Let me give you a little background of how this all came about. I've been teaching PMP boot camps now for 6 years, and I found a common thread. I found that 50% of the people pass the exam, which leaves 50% of the people that fail it. Now, what intrigued me was the 50% who fail, and I just started researching why do they fail it, and I found a couple of the reasons that people fail, even though they have a required 35-hour boot camp. That's a week of training. Like, that's a lot of information. Anybody should be equipped with that much information. But I found that one of the top reasons why people fail was that they didn't know how to study after a boot camp. So when you don't have access to a professor or an instructor that you could ask questions when you get stumped, it's a problem. The second thing I found was the application was stumping people, right? So you take a boot camp, you get back to work, life happens, and then you don't know how to manage, study, compartmentalize your time, really be effective in learning what you need to learn to pass this exam. So I said, you know what? Let me just pilot something. What if I help people study the way I studied after I took my boot camp, and I could just give them the same strategies that I used while I was self-studying after the boot camp, going on a fellows trip, going on a family vacation to the Dominican Republic. Fellows trip was to Miami. I did all this while I was studying that month after I took my boot camp, and I passed the PMP exam. Now, I'm going to show you some things today that I did. I'm going to give you all the tips and pointers I used. You're still going to have to do more. Let me go ahead. That's my disclaimer. Like, this isn't the end-all, be-all. This is to guide you in what you need to do. I'm going to give you a lot of meat, but this is incumbent upon you to do it, right? So, again, Chris Daniel, PMP Guru. I created this for my boot camp students, and I realized that there are a lot of people who take other boot camps, who have taken some time off, who your life happened, all right, you're just struggling with studying, and you want to know a way to get back in it so you can pass this thing, particularly before the exam changes in Q1 of 2018, all right? So with no further ado, let's hop over to the slide deck, and let's get this party started. So I'm going to share my screen with you guys, and I'm going to hop into it. We're going to cover what I like to call everything you need to pass the PMP exam. Like I said, you guys are going to have to do the work as well. So I'm going to guide you through what I got my students through. Let's go. A little bit about me. 9+ years, almost a decade as a federal employee. I was director of training for a major agency here in DC. I'm originally from Georgia. You guys hear the accent. Moved to DC after college. Believe it or not, my undergrad was print management and graphic arts. So I didn't start out with a degree in project management that lets you know you don't need a degree in it. But after a decade almost, I really wanted to make a bigger splash with people outside of the government. The government was cool, but I really needed to make a big splash outside of government. And I didn't know quite how I was going to do it until I bumped into this guy about halfway through my career that told me I needed to explore a career in project management. And I did. And that's where I realized that, hey, PMP certification is out there, and I don't see a big representation of minorities, particularly brown people, in it. So I said, hey, let me take a stab at it. And I fell in love with it, and I left government. And everyone said that I was crazy, and that was in 2010. So I've been consulting now for almost 8 years independently, guys. I'm enjoying every minute of it. As you can see, I get to work out of home a lot of days when I'm not teaching boot camps or doing any sort of corporate consulting or training. I'm usually in the home consulting on project management or how to pass this exam. I did go back to work for a brief stint for a small consulting firm while I was traveling all over the country. And with that being said, I had a lot of fun doing that. I learned a lot about myself, my style, and truthfully speaking, I realized, okay, I got to go back fully independent. I was still doing some boot camp stuff then, but not to the level I'm doing now. So truthfully speaking, guys, 90% of my time is teaching PMP certification. I used to do the beginner, intermediate, and advanced project management courses like you guys probably have taken, the little 1 day or 2 day courses. Those are cute, but they don't yield PMP. All right, let me just go ahead and say that. So now truly, again, I just create PMP related products and services and consult on it, man. I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot. All right. Your objective is to pass this exam, not to ace it, just to pass it. That's it. That's all I want you to do. All right. So I want to get you prepared for your application process. If you don't have your applications approved, I'm going to make available a template to you guys just for investing in this. I have the perfect, I call it the perfect PMP application template. It's 100%. All my students that use it, they pass on the first try. I've had 2 people that didn't. One got audited. We corrected and updated her information, resubmitted it. She passed it. The second one, she didn't get audited, but PMP sent it back and said, hey, or PMI sent it back and said, hey, give us a little more information. We added the information. It was approved, right? So I'm 100% with this template. It works. If you need this template, do me a favor. Email me, onechrisdaniel@gmail.com. The number 1, chrisdaniel@gmail.com. And just in the headline, say, need that template, okay? All right, and I'll happily send it over to you. I'm going to make it free again to you guys for investing in the 4-week follow-up program. For those outside of it, I just charge an even $97 fee for it. And it's a great template to use, okay? So I want to help you understand PMI's process and verbiage. That's huge for the exam. I want you to understand and recognize critical terms, concepts in project management that you'll need for the exam. I'm going to give you some exam insights through this 4-week journey. We're going to gauge your strengths and weaknesses. Some people may be stronger in planning and executing versus closing and initiating. I don't know yet. We will find out. But with all that said, I want you to customize your approach. I'm going to give you a good framework, but I want you to customize your approach, okay? So this is really simple. You had the 35-hour boot camp whenever you took it, and I'm sure you took it within the last 12 months, all right? You would have had to take it within the last 12 months to be preparing for the exam, but maybe it's been a while. So you've had that. I'm going to ask you to go back to your stuff. You got to recant some of that stuff. Hopefully this is your jump start to help you pull out that binder, that folder or whatever. But I'm going to give you some individual links to online exercises, practice exams, things you can do. And in the 4-week follow-up, I use this model since we're all into triangles in project management, right? The triple constraint, the iron triangle. Mine is CDL. Confidence, discipline, and leverage equal exam success. I promise you, right? So confidence comes from practicing the terms, making your flashcards, getting more of the practice questions right in the back of the chapter, getting more of the exam questions right from practice exams. That's where you build confidence. And we don't want to get to cockiness, but you build confidence over time. Discipline. Discipline comes from having a study regimen. I'm going to give you a suggested one in a few minutes, all right? Discipline comes from having a steady regimen that's consistent, that moves all barriers, that moves all distractions and interruptions, and that puts this at the forefront of your life for a brief period of time, guys. We're talking 30 to 45 days, all right? We're not talking about a huge time. We're talking about a month. Yes, life is going to happen. Murphy's Law is going to happen. I promise you it will. But if you just do what I ask, and if you stay consistent, in 30 to 45 days, you'll be ready to take and pass the exam. Third leg is leverage. Being able to leverage what you know, not from what you do at work, because most of you guys are in a poor matrix, not even a weak matrix. You're in a poor matrix, and you practice project management all wrong, or at least mostly wrong anyway. But what I want to do is give you the best practices, what PMI said, all right, or what would PMI do? I'm going to give you that so you can leverage the exam for ultimate success, okay? So I want to show you real quick but I'm gonna bounce back. Let me bounce back for a second. I'm gonna stop my screen share and I'm gonna show you guys some critical elements, right? So some critical things you need when you're studying for this. All right, let me give you them. You need some water. All right. And I got a little backup. I got a couple of them going on. All right. Coffee or tea. We're in for it. I hit Panera up this morning. I got my snacks. All right. You see I'm dressed comfortably. I know you guys probably see me in button-ups or suits. Let me take this watch off. Button-ups or button-up shirts or suits or a little more professional. Here's the thing. When you're studying for this, man, you need to be comfortable, right? So right now I just got socks on. I got jeans. I got a comfortable shirt. Got to get ready to get into the study mode. I am sitting at a table. Make sure you're sitting at a table when you do this. Or if you're going to sit on the floor, that's fine. Just know you're going to be there for a couple of hours, okay? All right, so with that being said, those are just my starters. That's my starter pack, all right? Now let me go back to share my screen again, and we can jump back into the slide deck, okay? So now, with addition to that, this is what you need. You need the PMBOK, all right? 5th edition right now. You need Andy Crow's book, How to Pass the PMP Exam on Your First Try. Now, I'm going to say you need these next two are optional. I studied Andy Crow's book, all right? Number 3, Rita Mulcahy's PMP Exam Prep. Some people love that book. Most of my students say they like Rita's books for the questions. Her questions are synonymous with the full exam questions I hear. I don't know. I never studied Rita's book, but I just go by what my students say. And then this is super important, the PMI Lexicon of Terms, all right? You can find that on PMI's website. It's a little buried now, but just go on and search for it. You can find it on there. It's a free download. I forget how many pages, but the PMI Lexicon of Terms, I hear these are the key terms on the exam. All right, that's what I hear. Now, mind you guys, I took my exam, back in 2009, I believe it was, 8 or 9. When I passed it on the first try. I took the 4th edition. We're on 5th. Getting ready to go into 6th now. The question is, well, Chris, are you even qualified to teach this course? And I tell people, my instructor got his PMP in 1978, who taught me, and I got mine in 2009. So the core concepts don't change a whole lot, all right? They do change a little, and I'll update this when the 6th edition comes out. However, right now, yes, I'm relevant. Yes, I teach out of the 5th edition, and yes, I'm qualified to help you pass that exam, all right? So here's the game plan. For session 1, today we're going to do an overview. We're going to cover initiating, and we may get into a little bit of planning today, all right? I plan on covering probably about 40 slides or so. Next week, session 2, we're going to do planning, and planning takes a while. It's a beast. Session 3, we're going to get into executing, monitoring, controlling in session 3, week 3. And I'm going to tell you key concepts out of there. Session 4, we're going to do closing, professional responsibility. That's a tricky little area. It's simple, but I hate for you to miss those questions because those are the heartstring questions. And then out of the kindness of my heart, I decided to do a bonus session. In the bonus session, I'm going to just do a quick review. I'm going to give you some study hacks. I'm going to give you some things you need to do before, during, and after the exam. And I may give you a little bit of insider know-how about the exam, my 3-path method to be exact, okay? All right, so here we go. This is how the exam is broken down. In each category, you have a certain percentage of questions out of 200 questions. So the exam itself is 200 questions. It's all multiple choice. You get 4 hours to take it. Now, I hear that you get a booklet instead of a blank sheet now. So you get this little notebook with clear paper that you can write whatever you want to write on the paper, right? You can do your brain dump, right? So we'll talk about the brain dump at a later date and time. We're not there yet. But the exam itself is broken down into these 6 sections: initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, controlling, closing, and stakeholder management or professional responsibility, right? Out of those 6, you need 4 areas proficient out of 6. And get this, you can be barely proficient, right? You can be proficient. You can be highly proficient. Any of those 3 count. right? But you need that in 4 out of the 6. You can get proficient in 4 and not proficient at all in 2 and still pass this exam, okay? But as you can see, planning, executing, and monitoring, controlling, that alone, that area alone, I mean, we're talking about makes up, what, 75% or so of the exam, right? We got a huge area, man, 70% or so. That's a huge area, right? So if you just study planning, execution, monitoring, controlling, and you just, let's say you picked up closing, right? Then you'd pass this exam because that's where the bulk of the questions. Now, here's the catch. They don't fall in this order on the exam. They're scrambled. So question 1 may be about professional responsibility. Question 2 may be about executing. Question 3 may be about stakeholder management. Question 4 may be about closing. Question 5 may be about what would you do if you were a project manager and your mom lost all the money in the company, right? So they're a hodgepodge. They're all mixed up. The questions come from a test bank of 6,000 questions I hear that are all randomly given based on your social security number. So I don't know which 200 questions you're going to have, but I know that if you understand this, you need to know where the bulk of your time and energy in study needs to be. Planning, executing, and monitoring, controlling. Spend time knowing the contents of those 3 sections, okay? So, well, let me go back because I want to teach you guys something real quick. Take a sip of my tea. When we're talking about study, people ask me, Chris, what should I study? What book should I get? I like to say get all the books on this slide, all right? If you have a tight budget, you need the PMBOK, the Project Management Body of Knowledge. Current edition is 5. You need that. That's non-negotiable. Between Rita and Andy Crow and Head First or any other book out there that you're studying, I'm going to say you at least need one of those. The one I used, again, was Andy Crow. Andy Crow is probably, in this group of books, the easiest to understand and digest. Next to that would probably be Head First. Next to that would probably be Rita. Next to Rita would probably be the PMBOK, in that order of difficulty. So easiest is probably Crow and Head First. Hardest is probably, most difficult is probably Rita Mulcahy and the PMBOK to understand, to digest. I never read the entire book of any of these, let me be honest. So all of you out there trying to read through the whole PMBOK, it is the most unsexy book written. Let me go ahead and say that. Sorry, PMI. It's just not a sexy read. However, here it is. It is the best reference book for this test. So I used it as a reference book. And whenever I had a question about something or didn't understand something, that's where I'd go to the PMBOK, all right? So that's my 2 cents about what to study and how to study, okay? So a couple things we're going to do. And all this, I promise you guys, all this is relevant to what you need to do, to how you're going to study. You need to establish some ground rules and personal must-dos. So you need to determine start and end times of your study sessions. Look at your life. I'm an early energy guy. I'm high energy early. So my study times were like 5 a.m. to 7:30 in the morning, right? Sometimes it was 4 to 6:30. Then I'd hop in the shower and head to work, all right? It just depends what your life is like. You need to approximately create 30 flashcards every study session. You need to answer about 40 questions, either at the end of the chapter or through practice exam questions. You need to answer at least 40 per study session, all right? You need 4+ practice exams, and I say full, I'm talking about the full 200 question practice exams within the next 30 days, right? Number one, you need to know what that feels like to answer 200 questions because it is draining. But if you got practice with it, you'll be okay when exam times come. And then you need to understand the psychology of the questions, how they're asked, what they're asking you. Miss questions, I don't care about you missing practice questions. But what I'm telling you is the more you miss and understand why you missed them, the more you'll be prepared for the exam. And you need to track your progress. That's one of the things that truly helps students is maybe the first exam I scored 35%, but the second exam I scored 37. And usually people get a little discouraged after that second one, and I tell them it's okay, keep studying and go back. And then they keep studying, and that third one, maybe they got up to a 45 or 50. And they're still like, man, I'm still not getting it. And I'm like, it's okay, keep studying. All right. And then they get up to that 60, 65 mark, and they get a little more confidence, but they've already taken 4. And I say, go back and take 2 more. And they'll take another, and they'll get to like that 70, 75 mark. And I'll just say, take 1 more, and they can get to that 70 to 80 mark. And I think you're ready at that point. So yes, that's a lot of practice exams. But for those of you who have not yet done so, go to my YouTube and listen to Janelle's interview. It's up there. You'll see it. Picture of a beautiful young lady who took my study session course. And after failing the PMP from another provider's boot camp, she came and took mine, went through the study sessions, and she passed it, right? She took a trip to Vegas, right? But she recorded an interview for me. She recorded like a 20, 25-minute interview of everything she did, right? And we're talking about a busy woman, right? So go listen to that interview if you have not already. It's on my YouTube. Just go check it out, right? If you've never been to the YouTube yet, just go to my website, onechrisdaniel.com. It's at the bottom of the slide deck right there. Actually, it's right over there. The bottom of the slide deck, onechrisdaniel.com, and then you can find it on there, okay? All right, so let's keep moving. What does the perfect study session look like? First, again, establish your think space. So get into a routine. I showed you snacks. Make sure you take a bathroom break after about an hour or so. Books, flashcards, highlighters, pens, pencils, stickies. You're going to need all that. And be sure you summarize everything, okay? So this is what the perfect breakdown looks like. And I know some of this is preliminary stuff, guys, but I promise you it's going to be helpful for you moving out. That's why I decided to record an extra bonus session for you guys. So what does a study session look like? Well, the first 10 minutes, you need to simulate the chart. All right, what do I mean by simulate the chart? You need to simulate the chart. In the PMBOK on page 61, there's a chart. I call it the PM50 chart, the knowledge areas and the process groups. All right, you need to simulate that chart as best you can. All right, and what do I mean by simulate it? I mean, make sure you take a blank piece of paper and you're able to recreate that chart from a blank sheet of paper. And if you can't do it right now, just start with the 5 process groups and the 10 knowledge areas, right? So maybe week 1, you do the 5, I ain't even gonna say week 1. Maybe the first 2 days, you practice on just what are the 5 process groups. Next 2 days, what are the 10 knowledge areas in that particular order. Next week, you focus on everything that's in the initiating column. Next week, you focus on everything that's in the, whatever it takes. This process may take you longer than 4 weeks. I don't want it to, but I'm assuming that you recently took a boot camp. If it's been a while since you cracked the book, this is going to be an intense 4 weeks. If you need to do an 8-week and go all over again, it's okay. All right. But you'll get these recordings, play them back as often as you need to. All right. But the first 10 minutes of each study session, you need to work on that chart. Second part. So 40 minutes. For 40 minutes, you need to pull out a book or books of choice to study, right? And I always say study 1 column per study session, if you can, right? So 1 column, meaning maybe this week, I'm going to study initiating, and in initiating, all the things that happen in initiating, I'm going to make sure I know everything about them. Maybe the inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs to each process, the key terms. I'm going to talk about that on the slide in a second, but I'm only going to stay in initiating for this set amount of time. It may be a day, 2 days, 3 days, whatever that is, okay? I always recommend students that on page 61 in the PMBOK, you study down the columns from top left all the way down, move over all the way down to bottom right, all right? So we're going to start at initiating, we're going to end at closing. I recommend you study that way, down and across, down and across, down and across, down and across, right? The books aren't written that way, so you'll have to jump around a little bit in the books. However, that's an easier way for my students to get it. And all of them say, man, I'm glad you teach it this way because I get it this way, all right? After that 40 minutes, you're going to be highlighting, you're going to be making flashcards in the book, in your books, you're going to be making notes on whatever that means, stickies, tabs, whatever you need to do, dog ear, that's fine. All right. But I want you to simulate the exam environment. I want you to take an 8-minute break. All right. So after 50 to 60 minutes, I want you to get up, go to the bathroom, stretch your legs, do 20 jumping jacks if you need to, get some water, stretch, go outside, get some air, whatever you need to do. But take 8 minutes. Turn your egg timer on, or the timer on your trusty smartphone, which, by the way, shouldn't be near you or should be turned off at best, okay? Once that break is over, I want you to come in and do another 40 minutes. And this time, I don't want you to just read through the chapter and highlight. I want you to go through the questions at the end of the section you studied and see how many you can get right, all right? The goal is always, if they're 75 to 80% of the questions, right? So if there are 20 questions, 17, 18 of them, you should be getting right. It would be my guess. You should be able to get right. Now, what happens if you don't get that many right? Then create flashcards of the ones you missed so you don't miss them again, so you can study them, right? That was my philosophy from day one. I didn't create it. I got it from someone who gave it to me, and I promise you it's the best thing since sliced bread. So you're going to wind up with quite a few flashcards. I think I had about 320 or 325 or so by the time I finished. Now, let me dispel the flashcard myth, because people are saying, hey, I'm an adult. I don't need to make flashcards. Like, why in the world, Chris, do you recommend I make flashcards? Simply because when you pull up into the study session, and not even the study session, when you pull up in the parking lot to the test center, and you see 10 other people sitting in cars thumbing through flashcards, and you got these big clunky books in your Mini Cooper, it's going to be super uncomfortable. So I say create flashcards. Go to the dollar store, go buy you 2 or 3 packs of those 100 set flashcards, and make sure you buy the little plastic bin that you can put them in too, so you can keep them together. They don't have to be in a particular order. Actually, as you're creating them, I'm okay with you keeping them in order, but I want you to scramble them up because the question is going to be scrambled up, okay? Once you finish that 40-minute jaunt of questions and flashcards, I just want you to do a quick review with practice exam questions, right? So I'm going to give you some links for practice exam questions. As a matter of fact, if you go to my website, onechrisdaniel.com, there it is again, and you go to my resources, I believe, or it's the blog, and if you search probably 3 or 4 blog posts down, it's been a while since I blogged, y'all, 3 or 4 blog posts down, you will find a post with 7 free practice exam sources, all right? 7 free. Some of them give you full 200 questions. Some of them not. If you're in the private Facebook group, which I hope you are at this point, you'll see I just posted a new practice exam link on there that's totally free, 200 questions. I try to kind of continue to provide that kind of value to you guys, okay? All right. So now, what should go on the flashcard? Well, you need common terms, and these are terms that you find in the section you're reading, right? So if you're in integration or initiating, then you should have some common terms that you keep seeing. One of the things I liked about Andy Crow's book, he has like this little marker beside like common terms or key terms. It says, like, I made sure I flashcard those things, okay? You need those ITTOs. I say it's probably about 40 of the most common ones. You'll see them over and over again. Things like expert judgment, things like EEFs and OPAs. You need to know those things, man. Contracts. You just need to know those things, right? Those are just common ITTOs. After we get about halfway through the process, we start to see them repeat. Like, that's how you know you need to know them. So I'm going to tell you right now, expert judgment, you need to have a flashcard with expert judgment, and you need to know what it is and when you need to apply it in project management. All right. Any missed questions. All right. You make sure you put any missed questions on flashcards. Maybe the question on the front, the correct answer on the back. Any confusing scenarios like quality assurance versus quality control. I know that messes a lot of people up by definition, or when it happens in the process. So make sure you get those kinds of things. I did true and false questions also, things that make me remember certain things on the exam. And then when I put the common terms, I would put maybe the term on the front, the definition on the back, right? So a bunch of different ways to create flashcards to help you not only remember, but recall and practice these things, right? Know where they happen on that chart. Know where they happen in the project management process, right? Those are the things you need. And I always say only one concept per flashcard, people. Like, don't get overzealous and try to fill your flashcard up with all this little bitty text that you are not going to be able to read. Like, it's okay. Don't be cheap. Spend $5 at the dollar store and get 3 packs and 2 containers of flashcards, please. All right, I promise you, it's going to help you out in the long run. Okay. So now, let's look at real content, right? Real content that you need to be working on. All right. So the biggest thing you need to know in project management, man, I love this, the triple constraint, the iron triangle. People sleep on my iron triangle. I absolutely love it. Y'all know it is one of the major concepts in project management. If you've been in a boot camp with me, then you know we talk about this, the concept of the iron triangle. I always throw the diamond up because I got a weak triangle. I always do the Jay-Z move, but it should be more like that. And I always say, that triangle, I want you to think of it as an equilateral triangle with scope on one side, with cost on one side, and with time on one side. And if you have those things in great proportion, the quality of your project should be phenomenal. But if you mess up or touch or move one side of your triangle, what happens to the other 2 sides? Yeah, they move too, right? So what you need to know is if you adjust your project scope, this side, you need to adjust this side and this side. All right. If you mess with scope, you need to adjust cost and time. If you do mess with one side and don't adjust the other 2, your project is probably doomed to fail. Right. And I know from work, you can think about these things where the boss initially gave you $20 to go get coffee for 4 people. And then he called you on your cell on the way and said, hey, Victoria just came in. Can you add 1 more cup? And you said, I think I can squeeze it out, but you know you just ruined your project, or at least you came out of pocket with some money for that coffee, right? And the thing you need to know is that you forgot to say, hey, it's going to take me probably 5 extra minutes, and I'm going to need 5 more bucks. You forgot to adjust the other 2 sides of the triangle. This is the key concept in project management, right? And you got to know it and be able to apply it at all times. And truthfully speaking, guys, if you walk away with nothing else but this, you're going to be a better PM. No, flat out. If you walk away knowing that just by managing the triangle in your project, you're going to be a better PM. Flat out, point blank. Okay? So now let's keep going. Project management, we know it was initiated in 1984. The PMP exactly was. Project management itself was before then. But the PMP, it was recognized, it was initiated to recognize those who understand how to lead projects and direct project teams. Why do I read that definition verbatim when you can read it yourself? Because this does not say that the PM, especially the certified PM, the PMP, does all the work. It says it's for someone who understands how to lead projects and direct project teams. Project managers, we get the work done through the people, and it doesn't make us an aristocracy or better than anyone. It just says I can command a team to get this work done at a very high level consistently. That's what you're getting the PMP for. That's what you make the big bucks for, okay? Candidates that understand all these aspects of planning and execution and everything in between, these are the people we want as PMPs. Is that you? I hope so. You paid for the course, so I hope it's you. All right. Project definition. Know that it's a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product or service. Keywords, temporary endeavor and unique product or service. I've seen that question on the exam multiple times. The project can only end when the objectives are met, the project is terminated, or the need no longer exists, guys. Like, I'm going to just be honest. That's the only time, right? Each project has a definite beginning and ending. Go to the PMBOK, review this definition, read it again, know what it's about. So if we know what the PMP is and we know what project management is, then or a project manager is, right? Then we know that project management is the application of everything we just said. It's the knowledge, it's the skills, it's the tools and techniques so we can meet the objectives of the project, flat out, point blank, all right? Now, if we can understand a triangle, know that the project has a beginning and an end, know that project can only be canceled with those three things in mind, know that we got some clear objectives, know that we got a team pushing this effort forward to completion, right? If we can do that simultaneously, which most of you guys are working on multiple projects, then that's called a program, all right? A program is a group of related projects that we just do the same things to. It's the organizational approach to multitasking, really. It's the organizational approach to managing multiple projects. It's called a program, right? So if that's a program, the next level up is the portfolio, all right? And the portfolio is just a group of programs, right? So we got a project, we got multiple projects that turn into a program, we got multiple programs that turn into a portfolio, all right? And portfolio management is just the centralized management of all these portfolios, from identifying to prioritizing to authoring, managing, controlling, everything within, okay? I know, I'm moving. Stay with me, guys, stay with me, okay? We're almost done. So now, the definition of project, of program, of portfolio, that's all great. But we're on project management because that's the foundation of it all. And within project management, there's a series of things that happen that lead up to a milestone, a point in time, a decision point in your project. And those things are called processes. So a process is a set of interrelated actions to achieve a specified set of products, results, or services, right? So it's the things that happen within your project. It's the series of things that happen within your project, okay? And with that being said, each process, stay with me. I know I gave you a lot of P's. I know I've been talking about projects, programs, portfolios, and now I'm on process. This is the last one I'm gonna give you, last P. A process are all those interrelated tasks that must happen for you to keep progressing on your project toward the milestone or the deliverable, okay? Each process has three things in common. It has things that go into it called the inputs. It has tools and techniques, things we use in the process to make it better. And as a result of making it better, we have something that comes out of it called the output. Inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs. I know that's 4 letters, but it's 3 things. Inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs. ITTOs. Inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs. Every process has ITTOs. You're going to see slides like this for every process. That's when you know, ding, 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 I probably need to make a flashcard of the ITTOs on this slide. There are hundreds of ITTOs, too many for you to remember all of them. You don't need to remember all of them for the exam. Like I said, there are about 30, maybe 40 that are consistently seen throughout the books, the test questions, the prep questions that you need to know. And you'll know them because you'll see them over and over again. And we're going to be deliberate about flashcarding those as well, okay? So, the PM50. This chart, I love it. I hate it. You're going to hate it before you love it. But the PM50 is a remarkable chart that will give you probably, my guess would be about 45% of the exam on this chart. If you know these things, the 5 process groups and the 10 knowledge areas and the processes that happen in between them, you're probably 40 to 45% home free for the exam. Like you're probably about halfway prepared for the exam just knowing what I'm about to show you, all right? So the PM50 consists of 5 process groups and 10 knowledge areas. The 5 process groups are initiating your project, planning your project out, executing on your project, that's doing the work, monitoring, controlling, and then closing out your project. Those are the 5 big process groups that we funnel every project through. In conjunction with those 5, there are 10 knowledge areas that go down the chart that must be happening simultaneously. We need to integrate the project into our environment. That's called integration. We need to define a scope, right? That's called focusing your project. We need to understand how much time it's going to take, right? We need to understand how much money it's going to cost. We need to know what kind of quality we're expected to have. We need to know what kind of HR we need. We need to know what kind of communications we need on our project. We need to know what kind of risk is involved. We need to know how to pay for or procure services, and then we need to know how to manage the stakeholders, right? All those 10 knowledge areas must be running simultaneously with the process groups, all right? That's why I call it the PM50, right? And you usually see that on the chart, which is on page 61. I'm going back to my chart, PMBOK page 61. Guys, I promise you, if you know this, trust me when I tell you, if you know this, backwards and forwards, you're about 40 to 45% ready. So what do I mean? Know how to regurgitate this chart from scratch before you walk into that testing center. So remember I said your first 10 minutes needs to be regurgitating this chart, right? Start with the 10 down the left and the 5 across the top first. And then next come and fill in, go column by column, go initiating, then planning, then executing, then monitoring, controlling, then closing. If you want to take 1 to 1.5 columns a week, I'm okay with that. All right. But make sure that in the next 3 to 4 weeks, you can do this from scratch. Now, here's the deal. I know it's only an hour a week you have with me. You got the rest of the time on you. But in the boot camp, it's so interesting because we start off with this, a quiz and homework every night with this chart. And I tell students on day one, I know you don't think you can do this, but usually by Thursday, Friday latest, students can fill this in from scratch, just from practicing, guys. I know it's a lot. I know when you look at that planning column, you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to be able to do that. I promise you, you can. There's a rhythm and a flow. So let me give you just one of the secrets, or two of the secrets, rather. 2 mnemonic devices that students came up with that help them remember how these things go, because they must be in order. So let me just start off with the process groups. The first acronym is I pass exam, money comes. All right. I, initiating. Pass starts with a P. P is for planning. E is for executing. M is for monitoring, controlling. And C is for closing. I pass exam, money comes. The first letter of each word, if you can remember that sentence, that'll give you some clues in the order and the flow of those, right? And they must be in that order. The second one, we know it's a little more to remember because it's 10 process knowledge areas, guys. So it's a lot more. So this one says, if she takes cash, sorry, ladies, if she takes cash, question her risk planning strategies, right? If she takes cash, question her risk planning strategies. What does that mean? Again, the first letter of every word: integration, scope, time, cost, quality, HR, risk, procurement, and stakeholder, right? If you can remember that, we got the chart at least 20% done. Now you got to go fill in all the blanks, but this is a good way to start it. Salute and shout out to Faison. If you haven't watched Faison, he's got another weird, wacky way. He's got a phone number that will help you remember how many processes are in each group. It's a cool little way. Again, Faison on YouTube, F-A-I-Z-I-O-N. No, I'm sorry, Praizion, P-R-A-I-Z-I-O-N, Praizion. Go look him up on YouTube. Got a little British accent, but someone else out there who's down for the PMP calls, okay? All right, I know. It's a lot of stuff. We're approaching the hour mark shortly. I just want to make sure I provide enough value in this first session to jump start you guys off. I'm going to cover a few more slides. I'm going to open up for Q&A. I already see some questions from you guys that I'm going to answer. Hope I've been answering them in between, but hold your questions right now. Let me just do a quick temperature check to see how you guys are doing. Great. Looks like you guys are doing great. I see the questions on the side. I'm going to come back to them in a second, but let me just finish the slides. I want to go, oh gosh, I had planned to go to like slide 42. That's 20 more slides. I'm going to gauge it. I think I'm going to go 20 more. I'm going to give you the extra. If you can stay with me, great. If you got to jump off, I understand. But let's get them all done. And then I want to just answer the questions, and I'll post the questions in the Facebook group And if you guys aren't in the Facebook group, just message me and we'll get you in the Facebook group, okay? All right, so here we go. So here's what a project life cycle should look like. On the bottom left, we see that we start our project, right? So this is the beginning. This just says that in the beginning of time on our project, day 0, right? Before we start any work, any project team, any planning, before any of that, our costs and our staffing levels are very low. That would make sense, right? Total sense. But as we start preparing and planning for our project after our charter, you see the price goes up a little bit, the cost goes up, the staffing goes up. The ultimate sacrifice of people and money happens in executing, carrying out the work. So we spend the most money and we spend the most time in this part. And then as you can see, when we're closing, after the deliverables have been accepted and we're formally closing out our project, that our costs and our staffing go down, right? But the objective is to spend all the allocated funds for our project. That's the goal. That's the sign of a good PM, okay? Now, this beauty, I love it. It seems crazy. Go study this. Go know this, because the influences of the project on the project matrix is huge. You will see questions about this, I promise. All right. So here's how you decipher and read this. Again, go read it. Go to PMBOK, go to Andy Crow, go to Rita Mulcahy, go to Head First, whatever you're studying. Make sure you understand this. So we start from left to right, top to bottom. So on the left, far left, you see the organizational structure, which is across the top, right? That's functional, matrix, and projectized. Then within matrix, you got weak, balanced, and strong. Bottom left, you see the characteristics of each one. So we start with functional. I always remember functional as dysfunctional because that is the most dysfunctional organization out there, right? So this is more like new businesses, small businesses that don't have a good process or a project environment where they're doing formalized project management. This is what drives project managers up the wall. This may be where you work at now. Hats off to you. I'm so sorry you're in that environment. Go ahead and get your PMP so you can get paid and get in a better environment. But in a functional organization, you see that the project manager has little to no authority. They have little to no resource availability. They don't control the budget. The functional manager usually does, or the departmental manager. The project manager's role may be part-time at best, but they have a part-time at best staff as well. So the PM gets no love, no respect in a functional. Let's move over to a weak matrix. They get a little bit more. They have limited authority, limited resource availability. The functional manager still runs it over there. Their role and their admin staff is usually still part-time, probably on a volunteer basis for a certain percentage of the day. We move over to balanced matrix. So this is probably where I came from, like government, right? This is where the PM has low to moderate authority, not a whole lot. You can still go back over their heads. You should never do that. Let me say that. I'm ashamed of that. But truthfully speaking, it's what happens. Low to moderate resource ability. It says mixed, but the departmental manager probably still has 51% versus the PM 49% of the budget. The project manager's role is full-time now, but they're still trying to figure it out, and then they still have a part-time staff. But this is where the tables turn, my friends. So when you get in a strong matrix, that's when you have moderate to high involvement from the PM, moderate to high authority, moderate to high resource availability. The PM starts to finally control the budget in a strong matrix. All right. The PM is full-time and he or she has a full-time team. And in a highly projectized, somewhere like Microsoft, somewhere like probably an IT company, somewhere where projects get done, like an HP or an Intel, those kind of companies, maybe a healthcare company where everything funnels through a project, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Anthem, those kind of environments with heavy project focus, maybe even have a PMO and a director of the PMO, then we know the PM has almost total control of the budget, of the resources, of the authority of the project to make decisions. His role is full-time, probably making anywhere from 100 to 150K a year. And they have a full-time team and staff. All right. That's the dream job, right? That's also the dream headache. So be careful what you ask for, guys. The PMP is not for lightweights. It's for people who take this seriously, who should be compensated well, but they know they're going to work and earn that income. Okay. Know that chart. I want to explain real quick what EEFs and OPAs are. Right. This may be a little confusing. You need to make a flashcard of this. EEFs, enterprise environmental factors. These are things that rarely change in a project's environment. Things like the organizational culture, standards, infrastructure, existing human resources, personnel, work authorization system, the project climate, commercial databases, like all these things rarely change, right? These are usually the static things in an organization versus OPAs. These are things that may change over time, right? So things like standards and policies, things like project management policy, guidelines, work instructions, templates, audits, process databases, project files, issues and conflict management, historical data and lessons learned documents, and then financial management data. These are all things that can be changed over time in the project environment. EEFs versus OPAs. Know the difference, okay? Who are stakeholders? Because this term it's always been around, but stakeholder management is the newest knowledge area. And this whole term of stakeholders has been fairly remixed and revamped, right? So we need to wrap our minds around who the stakeholders are on our project, right? And the key stakeholders are the project team, the sponsors, the performing organization, customers or end users, vendors, labor unions, and the general public. Those are the key ones, but I urge you to open up your PMBOK and go in the back and look at the appendix for the page where you see stakeholders. And I want you to read through that to understand and get a full grasp, knowing that it's the project manager's responsibility to manage the stakeholders. It's the project manager's key responsibility. All right. So understand that. All right. The role of the PM is very simple. All right. Your job is to achieve the project's objectives. Point blank, period. So what are those objectives? We got 3 categories: the knowledge, the performance, and the leadership. Knowledge, knowing how to apply project management principles. Performance, using that to achieve the objectives. And leadership, which is the hardest one, controlling the attitudes, behaviors, and performance of yourself, as well as your team, as well as the stakeholders. That's probably the most difficult part about the job of being a project manager, right? So I want to show you this. I call it the PM Spider. It's just a mind map. You see, I found it from, I think it was PM Study is where I got this. I use everybody's resources. I'm not privy. It's a ton of stuff out there. Let me say this. The more you search, research, and look for stuff on PMP Prep, the more of us you're going to find out here. All right. I always say just stop at 3, PMI being 1, the guru being 2, and then pick somebody else, Andy Crow, Rita Mulcahy for your 3rd, right? You just got to do it because the more you're going to find a ton of stuff out there. So I just say stop looking and focus on 3 people and use them as your go-to gurus to pass this exam. You only got to pass it one time, guys. All right. But this is the PM Spider. What does this mean? This is just a look, a visual representation, a mind map, if you will, of project management, all the knowledge areas minus stakeholders. Stakeholders not on here. I realize that. So probably want to find an updated one. But all the subsidiary project plans that go into maintaining a good project management plan. So each project management plan should have an integration plan, a scope management plan, a time management plan, and so on and so forth to make sure it's complete. Let me ask the question you're all begging to know. Does every project need one of these to be successful? Probably not, but they probably should have at least some semblance of each one of these areas, all right? Because who knows, you may be so good of a project manager that someone calls you to do another project and they got to find another PM for you, and they come in and they take over. And if you don't have this stuff in place, even if it's just a 1 page on each of these, then they're going to be short. And that's ethically not sound as a PMP. Okay. So now I want to just do just a little bit of preparation, right? I want to be very, very intentional about what I teach you, about what to learn in this first column, all right? And then we're going to break. I know we're at the hour mark. I got a little bit more juice to give you guys. I don't want to leave you hanging, but I want to teach you to review everything we've covered, and I want to teach you what to study in these next couple slides, all right? So in the integration and initiation tab column, all right, it's a couple of things I want you to know. That there are two processes that happen, but this is the phase where we define and authorize our project, right? So it's very conceptual at this point, initiating. We're thinking about our project. We may have had some meetings about it, but we're going to define the project itself, not in great detail. The fact that, hey, we just want to dig ditches. We want to dig 8 ditches, and we got the money to dig the ditches, and we want to make Chris the project manager, right? In the boot camp a couple weeks ago, we did tea. Right? The tea project. So we want to make 12 cups of tea for all our boot camp participants. We want to use peach ginger tea bags. We want to put 2 tablespoons of honey, and we want Selena to run our project. That's all we got at this point, right? And we got $25 to make the tea with. That's all we're doing. We're defining and we're authorizing the project or the phase. And the 2 processes that come out of that is we develop a charter and we identify who our stakeholders are. That's all that happens in initiating, right? So a charter is the birth certificate of your project, right? It kicks it all off, right? And a lot of people skip this because they think, oh, I want to go into planning. And guys, I promise you, you need to follow these steps in order, right? Not only for the exam, but for real project management application. So things that go into the charter: the business need, a current understanding of the customer need, the new product or service as it's intended. Those are just a couple of suggestions, right? But know that the charter kicks it all off, and the charter is a process. Every process has what? I'll wait. ITTOs. Every process has ITTOs. So what are the I's? What are the inputs? Contracts, statement of work, EES and OPAs. What are the tools used? Expert judgment, maybe some project selection methods, maybe the PMIS, the information system that you use on your projects, maybe the methodology that the organization used to manage projects. And if we shake all that stuff up, out of it, our O should be a project charter, a good sound project charter. Not super detailed. Let me make that clear. It doesn't have to be super detailed because we don't know anything yet. We just know we want a project. We can authorize a project because we got money to authorize it. We know what we want in a project, and we may be able to name our project manager. So a lot of people use that synonymously with some other thing, and it shouldn't be. It's a charter. It's the birth certificate of your project. But inside the charter, you can have a statement of work. A statement of work is not a contract, guys. All right, it's a narrative description of the products or services to be supplied by the project. It's one element of project selection. It describes what will be produced, very similar to a business case. It's based on business needs, and it aligns the projects with the organizational strategic goals for deliverables. All right, that's what a statement of work is. Yes, it's more detailed than the charter by itself. It is an element of the charter. It is not the contract. It is not the end-all, be-all. You guys be using it synonymously. I know, and it's not. It's just an element, okay? So what are the common EEFs you'll see and OPAs you'll see at this point? Company culture for EEFs, industry standards, existing HR. Remember, we saw this stuff already. Marketplace conditions, PMIS, stakeholder tolerances, hiring and firing guidelines. These are things that aren't readily going to change in the organization. First is OPAs, things that may change. Standard processes, templates, guidelines, requirements, project files, knowledge bases, and databases. These things can be updated. So no, at this point, yeah, this is all the stuff we could be using, all right? What is expert judgment? I know it sounds like such a high-level corporate term, but it truly means it's just best guess based on experience. That's all it is. It's your expert judgment based on the experience you've had in this environment. So where do we get expert judgment from? We get it from other organizational units or departments. We get it from consultants, stakeholders, professional organizations, and industry groups. These are all different sources where we can get expert judgment from. Now, with all that being said, we get to select the best approach to project management. And I'm in the home stretch right now, guys. So we get to select what works best in the way we select our projects based on everything we have at this point. Again, we're just in initiating. We're in integration. We're trying to figure out how to take this idea from our heads of a project, roll it out, initiate it, and integrate it into the environment. So I highly suggest, I want to say it's probably the first 100 pages of the PMBOK, thumb through it, all right? I'm not saying read it cover to cover. I'm saying thumb through it, skim through it, highlight, circle, put your stickies. Next week, I'm going to bring my PMBOK. I forgot to bring it in this morning, but I'm going to show you how it's tabbed up and marked up so you can see exactly how I've put it together. But truthfully speaking, guys, that first, I think, 100 pages of your PMBOK, just thumb through it at this point after this session, right? So you can go through and see what I mean about initiating and integration. A couple of project selection methods. We got 2 schools of thought in 2 categories. Excuse me. 1 is the benefits measurement method, and then 2 is the mathematical model. So let's start with benefits measurement. I know it's a lot of terms. Just flashcard them. Go to the PMBOK, put the term on the front, put the definition on the back. Under benefits measurement, we have 4 things you need to understand. We can use a comparative approach, comparing current projects with previous projects. We can do some sort of scoring model. We can do a benefits contribution model, or we can do an economic model. Just stay right there for a minute. If we look at mathematical models, we can use things like programming algorithms, linear, nonlinear, dynamic, integer, and multi-objectives. Here's what you need to know about this slide. Go know the definitions. In the PMBOK, I just told you the page range to look for between, I think, the first 100 pages or so. And just look at this as these are different ways that we select the type of projects that we're going to work on in the initiation, in the integration phase. So we're not planning yet, right? We're not planning yet. We're just initiating. We're thinking about it. We're conceptualizing it. We're talking it through, maybe brainstorming at this point in our project, okay? What is PM methodology? Again, it's the way the organization manages projects, all right? It defines a process that aids the project team into developing and controlling any changes, right? So doesn't it look like another derivative of that PM spider, right? You see project management in the middle, and then you see all the knowledge areas around it. It's the same thing, just another way of looking at it, knowing that each solid, sound project management plan needs to have these subsidiary plans for it to be solid, for it to be sustainable, okay? So we're rounding home base, probably 2 or 3 more slides here. Under the economic model way of selecting projects, we have benefit cost ratio or cost benefit ratio. We got net present value. We got return on investment, also called IRR, internal rate of return. And then we have payback method. Know the terminology, flashcard these. I'm gonna give you the key ones we use, or the key one we use. It's called net present value. So this is gonna be your first formula. I think this is your last slide. Net present value, it assists in determining the return on investment of your project, point blank period. And we have a formula for it. It's real easy, all right? It's the initial investment minus any discounted cash flow. So what it looks like is a formula where we have NPV equals the present value of revenues minus the present value of costs. Do not let this throw you guys on the exam. If you have a net present value question, I urge you, first of all, to go to Andy Crow's book and to go research it, or to go online and Google search PMP net present value example, and you'll see them on there. And it'll be a paragraph that says, the revenues are $300,000. It costs us $215,000 to create the project. What's the NPV? And all you're going to do is take the revenue and subtract costs, and you have your answer. It's that simple. Don't overcomplicate it. It really is that simple. I give you 2 other formulas. That's the part that confuses people. It's the same thing. It's just another way of looking at the net present value formula. The most common way you'll see it is this first formula, NPV equals the present value of revenue minus cost. That's the most common way, but you could see it as FVN, which is the future value in the number of years. They'll tell you the number of years, equals the present value times 1 plus the interest of that same number of years, right? It's just another way to see the formula. Which one do you use? You use the same one they're giving you. Whichever one they're giving you, that's the one you use, okay? Knowing that the bigger NPV or the bigger present value is always better. You always want that, okay? All right. With that being said, the last slide I want to give you is about assumptions and constraints. And this is an easier concept to understand. I put the 2 definitions up there for you. Understand that assumption is a factor just for planning purposes that considered to be true without proof. So we're making an assumption on our project that it'll cost us $300,000 based on the fact that it cost us $300,000 last time. Well, that's a good guess, but we don't have proof yet. So maybe we run a formula like NPV to validate that. Maybe we run some other formulas. I won't confuse you and get into earned value just yet. We're not ready for that. But maybe we look at previous performance to maybe make a justified guess on future performance. So assumption is a factor that for planning purposes is considered to be true without proof, whereas a constraint is any restriction or limitation on your project or given course of action, right? So you need to understand at this point in the initiation phase, what's assumptions, what constraints are you making about your project, and then you can go from there into planning. So with that being said, we are at the end of week 1, the end of session 1. Again, my goal is to get you to pass. As you see from the graphic on the screen, it's a lot of things to consider to pass this exam, but that's okay. You'll be okay. We're at the 73-minute mark. I know I'm way over my 60, but I wanted to give you guys a little more value. Let me go to the questions that I see you guys have out here real quick. Let me stop my share and let me see what questions I have. Oh, how much should I be studying? 2 to 2.5 hours a day, 5 days a week. All right. Now, you get 7 days in a week. The easiest way to do it is to study Monday through Friday at a set time. All right. Again, if you're an early bird, I say get up and do 4 to 6 a.m., 6:30 latest. Don't study more than 2 and 2.5 hours. I promise you, you're going to burn yourself out. All these people doing these marathon study sessions, oh, I'm going to take off work and I'm going to study all day. It does not work. This is not a cram exam. It does not work, all right? Just be consistent. It's only about a month, guys, maybe 45 days latest, but I highly suggest you get on the 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, 26 days, 4 to 6 practice exams. That's 1 practice exam a week to gauge yourself along the process. It will get hairy because it's a lot of content, but just stay on that flow. I'm here with you for the next 4 weeks, okay? And I got a bonus for you. Next question. What are the best sources for practice exams? Oh, go to my website, onechrisdaniel.com. Look at the resources tab. In there, there's a blog post, right? In the blog post, I'll post it in the private Facebook group for you guys. But you'll see one. I just posted one in there for a new practice exam. Should you take 200 questions now? I say yes, all right? I'm not looking for grades. I'm not looking for how many you got right. I'm looking for where you are as a baseline, and then the ones you missed, you got instant flashcards, right? When should you take the practice exam? I say after the first week of studying, after your first 5 days, probably day 7, take a day off, day 7, take a full-blown practice exam. Let's see where you are, okay? And let's make that routine. Maybe on day 7, 14, 21, and 28. I know this is 26 days, but that will give you the 30 days of full prep. And then if you don't feel like you're ready on day 30, it's okay. Go through this process again. Or just for the next couple of weeks, hone in and focus on the things that you're not comfortable with, primarily planning, executing, and monitoring, controlling, because we know those are the big 3, okay? What else? Questions? There are no more questions. I've answered them all. So guys, look, do me a favor, hop in the private Facebook group. If you're not in there, Check me out, facebook.com/1ChrisDaniel. You can post any questions you have there. I'm going to answer them every week. And make sure you request to get into the private PMP Facebook group. If you just go on to Facebook and type private PMP group and request access, if you pay for the course, we're going to let you in. If you're not, we'll see if I'm feeling good enough today to let you in. All right. So no, it goes through my admin, my business analyst over there. So look, with that being said, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you for tuning in, investing in yourself. I hope this has been fruitful. I know it's a lot of content. That's okay. We're going to chunk it and take it piece by piece. And I promise you, we're going to get you to exam success. So until next week, salute, go study. I'll see you on the next workshop.